Hey everybody, it's Josie here. Today I'm going to be doing a follow-up video to a video I did at the beginning of the year. So at the beginning of the year, I looked at my bookshelves and I realized I had a lot of books on my TBR and a lot of books that had kind of been sitting there for quite a while that I'd been meaning to get to, I really wanted to get to, but for whatever reason I hadn't. So what I did at the beginning of the year was I set myself, it was supposed to be 19 books for 2019, but apparently I can't count, so it was 20. But the top 20 books that I had to read for the first half of the year. And then when June comes, I'm going to do another 20 books that are kind of the must-read books for the second half of the year. And because I actually have a spreadsheet of these books, I realized this week that I had actually read all 20 before the target date of June, so I'm pretty pleased with myself. So I thought I would kind of talk about each one. I'm not going to do it in depth. I've got my laptop here in case you're wondering. I'm going to kind of give a line about each one, tell you maybe like a rating or kind of what I thought of it. And then I've also got these books over here. So these are the ones that I like the most out of the top 20. And like I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another video with the next 20 books that I need to read kind of from June onwards. So here goes nothing. So the first one that was on my list was The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So this is a very classic sci-fi. I think it's very British. It's meant to be quite humorous. The storyline meanders a little bit, and I'll be honest, I DNF'd this book. I thought I was really gonna like it, but I really didn't. Maybe it just wasn't. I just didn't get it. It just wasn't for me. Kind of not my kind of book. I was a bit confused. I feel really bad, but yeah, that was a DNF. Then the next one is Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe. Now, I really enjoyed this book. So this book is about, it's kind of classic queer fiction, and it's about an elderly lady. She's in a nursing home, and she gets visited by the wife of someone, like the husband, this woman's husband is visiting, I think, his mother in the nursing home. And she kind of wanders around and she meets this elderly lady. And she tells her stories about the Whistle Stop Cafe, where she grew up, about the characters there, the owners of the Whistle Stop Cafe. And it's just a really beautiful story. There isn't, if you want action, there isn't a lot of action in this, but it is just about the characters, about their lives, about their loves. It's gorgeous. I really liked it. I gave this one 4 stars. I think it didn't hit the 5-star for me simply because, no, I don't even know. There was just something, maybe I felt it went on a tad too long, but it was a 4. I really enjoyed it. I do recommend it. It was a 4-star read for me. Then the next one, this was another DNF. So The Fifth Season. This has been on my list for ages. People have told me that I was really gonna like it. And again, I started it, I just couldn't get into the story. I really tried. I didn't like it, I didn't know what was going on, it was confusing me. Maybe I wasn't in the right frame of mind, I don't know. I did try and give it another go, still couldn't get into the story. And I just eventually thought, you know what, I've got so many books that I need to read, I'm DNFing it. So that was another DNF off this list. The next one was The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. This one really intrigued me. So the idea was that the central character in the story basically has to relive the same day, but in different people's bodies. So he's at a party in this sort of like grand mansion, and Evelyn Hardcastle is the daughter of the owners, and she gets killed. So the idea is that he relives the day as different people to try and prevent Evelyn from being killed, or try to find out who is the murderer and who's behind that. And I thought that was a really interesting premise. I love the whole idea of kind of reliving, kind of that sliding doors effect, and also the fact that he was going to be different people. I did like that. I did like it. I didn't love it. So yeah, I liked it. So I think I ended up giving up 3.5 stars because I think the premise was really good. It was interesting, but it wasn't my favorite book that I've read this year. It's kind of, I don't know how else to put it. The next one is Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantero. Now this one, I was really looking forward to it because it was billed as a bit of a Scooby-Doo, Stranger Things. So you've got kind of a group of people. When they were kids, they formed a bit like a detectives club, and they uncovered this mystery in their town. And the book actually starts where they're adults and they've all gone their separate ways and different things have happened to them. And they kind of revisit this sort of mystery that they solve because they think, or one of them really thinks, and he kind of convinces the others, that they didn't actually solve it, that there was more to it, and that they need to go back to their hometown and like reinvestigate this. And again, great premise. I like the whole kind of Scooby-Doo aspect to it. There's even a dog. I liked it. Again, I didn't love it. I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't bad. It's not a bad book. Edgar Cantera's writing is a bit odd. In some cases, it can be a bit, I don't know, it can be almost a bit lyrical, but they're not. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of his writing. I don't know if I'd read another book, but it wasn't bad. Like, again, those kind of Scooby-Doo elements, those detective elements was a little bit middle of the road. But yeah, it was fun while it lasted. The next one was another huge letdown. So the next book is Transcription by Kate Atkinson. I love Kate Atkinson. Behind the Scenes of the Museum, Human Croquet, what's the other one called? Emotionally Weird. Love those books. Love her books. Kate Atkinson books aren't really about plot, they're more character driven. So I knew not to expect a huge amount of plot, but this book, so when you read the synopsis, it basically says it is about a woman who was a spy back during the war, and she then, is it the 50s or the 60s? Yeah, she was a spy during the war. And then you've got present day, and she's now working for the BBC, and then whatever happened back in the past was going to draw her back sort of into this world, and that sounded like a really interesting premise. But what I got was kind of not, like, it was incredibly boring. I did finish it because it was a Kate Atkinson book and she writes really beautifully, but my God, was I bored. There was no, the action was really boring, like the descriptions of when they were spies and like being in the office, it was all really boring. But at the same time, what a lot of her books lack in plot, they're great for in characterization, and I just didn't get that in this book. I wasn't drawn to any of the characters, didn't find any of them interesting. My overall impression of this book was that I was bored, and I think I gave it 2.5, but I would probably knock that down to 2 now. That one was disappointing. While we're talking about 2-star books, Vox is the next one. I have done a whole review on Vox. The book really angered me. So the premise is that you've got women, so this is in the States, that basically women's rights have been taken away, and they've all been fitted with these bracelets that only allow them to speak 100 words a day. And we're basically going back to the Dark Ages. So women can't work, they need to stay in the house, they can't speak, they're subservient. And you've got this woman who is a scientist and her family. And the idea, like what I thought it was going to be, was that she was going to, help change this and break out. And in certain ways it is, but it also, I think the premise was interesting. It was badly executed. Yeah, you can listen to my whole review. I did not like this book, and I think I gave it 2 stars at the time. I would probably knock it down to 1, because the more I think about it, the more it irritates me. So yeah, I didn't like that. The next book I did like. That is The Immortalists by Chloe Benjamin, I think is the author. This book, again, has a really interesting premise. So, like I said, I like the sliding doors, living your life over again kind of scenario. And the concept for this one is that you have these 4 siblings, and they go to like a fortune teller when they're young, when they're children. And the fortune teller tells them when each of them is going to die, gives them the exact date of their death. And then the book kind of follows through the years, and it starts with the one character, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And it's really interesting because, A, do you believe that? Do you believe that someone can predict the date of your death? I think it plays with the concept of they can, or is it then in your mind? So you almost make it a reality. Also, that central question of how would you live your life if you knew? If you knew you only had 3 years left on the clock, what would you do? Really interesting, some great LGBTQIA representations. You've got a queer character in there. It's a great book, and I think I'm going to read another. I saw she has another book out, and I probably want to read that one as well, but this one's really good. I really enjoyed it. I gave that 4 stars. Then the next one, The Bricks That Built the House. This is by Kate Tempest. So Kate Tempest is probably best known for her poetry and spoken word and kind of more musical poetry sense, but this is her first novel, and I really, really liked it. So again, this is not very plot driven. This is about, well, there is a plot. keep saying it's not, there is a plot, but it's not like, it's not racy plot, but it's more about these characters, this group of young kind of 20-somethings living in London. And again, the main character is a queer lady, and you get to find out about her relationships and the people she likes, and then their families. And what I like about this is that you have different characters, and then there's sort of coming together of the storylines at the end, which I quite like. And it's very well written, beautifully written. I really like her style of writing, and I definitely read another Kate Tempest book. And again, I really enjoyed this. It just that really slice of life, and I gave that one 4 stars as well. Then the next one is Heartless by Marissa Meyer. A retelling of the Alice in Wonderland story, focusing on kind of the origin story, I guess, of the Red Queen. I didn't like it. I gave it 2 stars. I find the main character incredibly annoying, who was supposed to be the Red Queen. There's a huge instance of insta-love, and I just don't think it was a great Alice in Wonderland-ish book. That's what I'm going to say about that one. The next one I read was Solitaire, and this is by Alice Oseman. The reason I picked this up is because I adore Radio Silence. I think, like most people, it's probably a cliche at this point, but Radio Silence is one of my favourite books. It's beautiful. Solitaire I liked, I didn't love. So again, the character, I think what's really interesting about this main character is that she's kind of, I think she's kind of on the autistic scale, and that was interesting. Like, the friendship was interesting in it, but it says on the front this is not a love story, and it actually is. I don't know, I just didn't connect with this one the way I did with Radio Silence. Everybody else's Born This Way is really good, so that one's definitely on my list of books that I need to get and read, because I think that one's probably more in the vein of Radio Silence. But Solitaire, I think Solitaire may have been her first book. It's not my, I gave 3.5 stars, but it's not my favorite of hers. Then the next one is The Passage. So by Justin Cronin. This is the first part of what is a trilogy of kind of post-apocalyptic, vampire-ish. And again, I've done a whole video talking about The Passage and talking about the fact that it is, to me, a vampire version of The Girl with All the Gifts. I don't know which one came first. We can argue that. I just feel like that post-apocalyptic infection, kind of what humanity does to each other, all of that was done a lot better in The Girl with All the Gifts. The Passage is incredibly long. I did finish it. It wasn't terrible. I'd say 2.5 maybe stars, but not my favorite. Definitely not going to continue reading. There is a point, yeah, there's a point with a paedophile that I don't like. Anyway, it's yeah, the more kind of probably, I think I gave it 3 stars originally, and it kind of, it's dropped in my estimation, but yeah, it's again not my favorite. I won't continue with the series. The next one is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Really liked Rebecca. There were some bits. So it's the classic story of a woman meets an old man. He's been recently divorced. She marries him, and she goes back to Mandalay, which is the house, this estate he lives in. And she almost haunts herself by memories of Rebecca, his former wife, and kind of her presence in the house. And I enjoyed it. This is one actually that I probably enjoyed more as I got distant from it. So I've got here 3.75 stars. But I really enjoyed this. And I love the fact that Mandalay, the house, the estate, has like a presence almost in the book, and it's its own character. I really like that. So then we're going to get to the books that I really, really liked. So the first one, and I've talked about this one endlessly, is this one over here, is A Long Way to a Small and Angry Planet, Becky Chambers. Many people talk about Becky Chambers' books, this whole series. It is basically about a spaceship or tunneling ship called the Wayfarer. This is sci-fi. They tunnel holes through space, and the book, this particular book, is about the Wayfarer, the crew on the Wayfarer. It's very character driven. It's about these different species. It has some great comments on gender and sexuality. There's a great female-female romance that's also interspecies, which is fantastic. The characters, it's beautiful, it's emotional. It's like the best sci-fi I've ever read. I love this. That's a 5-star book. Speaking of sci-fi, this has been my 6 months of sci-fi. Is this one over here, Slow River by Nicola Griffith. Again, I did not think I would like this as much, but I did. This is a kind of a masterwork, so you can see it's a classic masterworks edition, and it's predominantly, almost every character is female. The main two characters are in a relationship together, so you've got, it's queer as hell, and it's post-apocalyptic. It's set on Earth, but it feels more post-apocalyptic, but it's not so much about the action. There is a bit of a almost like a mystery thriller type of aspect to it, like an investigation. But what I love about this book is that delving into humanity, into what's right and wrong, into relationships and how we treat each other. There's a whole thing about the main character's past and her family, and it's just beautifully written. If you don't like sci-fi to be heavy on the science fiction, this is gorgeous. I would say it's more post-apocalyptic, but really focuses in on the characters, and queer ladies in sci-fi I am there for. The next one is The Serpent King, Jeff Setner. I love this book. I didn't realize how much I was going to love this book. So you've got these group of, it's got that trope of like a group of friends, almost like found family. What the main character's father is in jail. He was a preacher, and he's now in jail, and you'll find out why and what happened. And he has his friends, and they all struggle. They all have things in their lives and families that they struggle with, and it's them loving and accepting each other. It is incredibly heartbreaking. I don't want to say much about the plot because I think you really have to read it, but not a lot of things make me cry. This made me sob at the end. It's so beautifully written. Definitely one of my probably all-time favorites. It's gorgeous. The next one, this didn't make me sob, this made me smile, is, I know people are going to raise eyebrows, but Wonder Woman by Leigh Bardugo. I just really enjoyed this book. Maybe I was just in the right mood for it, but it was fun. I love Amazons. I love the mythology of Wonder Woman anyway. But the Wonder Woman in this is tough. She's strong. She's vibrant. The side characters are fantastic. There's a bisexual side character who I love in this book, and she's hilarious. She has some great lines. There's great action sequences. I just love that book. I don't know why. Then from the funny to the really serious is The Nowhere Girls. So this is about a town where a new girl moves into town, and she realizes the house she's living in was vacated by a girl in her family. This girl accused a bunch of the football players in the high school of gang rape. No one really believed her, and they left. And this is about girls banding together, fighting back and trying to overturn this culture of sexism and rape culture. And it is a hard book to read. It definitely trigger warnings for all of that. And they come up against some, adults and the police and the administration who don't even want to help them. But it ultimately is a story about the experience of girls, how we all have a common experience, how we need to band together and support each other. And it's gorgeous, and I absolutely 100% recommend. If you can handle the kind of the rape and sexual assault element, please read it. It's beautiful. It's a very important book. Then, again, the less serious is Bloody Rose. I thought I might like this. I didn't realize how much I was gonna like this. So this is, I suppose it's fantasy. It's what they call the band. So they're like a band of mercenaries, but they're almost like rock stars. So they tour this, it's almost like Viking-y. They tour this world, this fantasy world, and they do tournaments, and they take on assignments like killing monsters and things like that. It's a hell of a lot of fun. But what I loved about this is that the lead character, Bloody Rose, she's the leader of this band, which I love that she's a woman. Then you have this character over here who's fantastic. She's bisexual. But there's a lovely girl-girl romance in here as well, so there's great representation. So it's queer, fantasy, female-led, kick-ass, loads of action, fun. Love this book. And then the last one is Black Wave by Michelle Tier. I love this. So Michelle writes, this is just maybe just a personal thing that I love it. She writes 1990s lesbian fiction. And this is about Michelle is the main character, so it's got a semi-autobiographical in San Francisco about her life, her loves, the crazy things they do, drugs, alcohol, partying, that real 90s grunge culture set in San Francisco, set in the queer community. Again, totally character-driven, totally my thing, but I loved it. done. So those are all 20 books. Like I said, I will come back with what I need to read for the second half of the year. So I hope you enjoyed that. I will speak to you all again very soon. Bye-bye.